When did someone try to humiliate you and it backfire on them? Senior year, my chemistry teacher, Professor Hartwell, decided to make an example of me. I was the scholarship kid at a private academy where most families donated buildings. While classmates drove BMWs, I rode the bus 2 hours each way. While they wore designer uniforms, mine came from the school's assistance program, hand-me-downs from graduates. Hartwell had a PhD from Harvard and never let anyone forget it. His office walls displayed every award like a shrine to his intellectual superiority. He'd perfected the art of humiliation, targeting students he deemed unworthy of his classroom. I was his favorite victim because I asked too many questions and couldn't afford to complain. For months, he'd made subtle digs. "Perhaps this concept is beyond your background," he'd say when I struggled with expensive lab equipment I'd never seen before. When I submitted extra credit work, he'd return it ungraded with notes like, "ambitious, but misguided." The breaking point came during our final presentations. Each student had to present original research to the entire chemistry department, teachers, graduate assistants, and invited parents who funded the school's science programs. Hartwell announced I'd present last. "We'll save the most interesting work for the finale," he said, air quotes dripping with condescension. Several students snickered. My project focused on developing biodegradable plastics using food waste. I'd spent months in my garage converting potato peels and coffee grounds into functional polymers. While other students had parental labs and unlimited budgets, I'd MacGyvered everything from thrift store equipment. When my turn came, Hartwell introduced me with barely concealed disdain. "Ladies and gentlemen, Roxanne will now present her creative interpretation of polymer science." He emphasized creative, like it was a dirty word. The room buzzed with expectant laughter. Parents whispered among themselves. Roxanne was known for being poor, not brilliant. I set up my samples with shaking hands, aware of every eye on me. Then I began explaining my process. Within minutes, the room fell silent. My polymers weren't just functional, they were revolutionary. I'd accidentally solved degradation issues that had stumped industrial chemists for decades. What started as a desperate attempt to make something from nothing had become genuine innovation. Professor Davidson from the university's materials science department interrupted. "Stop! How did you synthesize this compound?" I walked him through my process. His eyes widened. "Do you realize what you've done? This could replace petroleum-based plastics entirely." Hartwell's face went pale. He'd been so focused on humiliating me that he hadn't reviewed my actual work. Davidson turned to him. "You didn't mention Roxanne's research in your department reports. This is groundbreaking work." "I was waiting for peer review," Hartwell stammered. "Peer review?" Davidson laughed. "This belongs in Nature Chemistry, not a high school portfolio." The room erupted. Parents who'd ignored me suddenly surrounded my display table. The dean appeared, asking why the chemistry department hadn't flagged such significant research. Hartwell tried to regain control. "Let's not get carried away. It's impressive for a high school project, but hardly." "Actually," Davidson interrupted, pulling out his phone, "I'm calling Dr. Reynolds at MIT. She'll want to see this." Within an hour, my phone was ringing. MIT's chemistry department, then Stanford, then 3 major chemical companies. 6 months later, I had a full scholarship to MIT and a patent worth millions. Hartwell was teaching remedial chemistry at a community college after the school board discovered he'd been suppressing student work to maintain his mediocre reputation. The day before graduation, he approached me in the hallway. "Congratulations," he said stiffly. "I always knew you had potential." I looked at him calmly. "No, you didn't. But thanks for making sure everyone else got to see it."